All right. Welcome, Necole Ezell, to the Forget Perfect newsletter leader interview.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for
Yes,
inviting me. I'm
I'm
excited.
so excited. I'm so excited to have you. And for our viewers, Necole is the VP of Business Transformation at Protective Life based in Birmingham, Alabama. And I'm just so excited to talk about all things leadership today. So let's just kick off and let's start with you telling me a little bit about yourself and your leadership journey.
Absolutely. So I grew up in a small town, and I say that with intention because I didn't really have the leadership exposure, if you would.
Yeah.
But I was able to, I guess, just from pure determination, I had a very high drive and passion for IT, and I knew I wanted to be in IT.
Okay.
And that actually led me to various roles between IT, acquisition integrations, and now business transformation. And I'll say that within those roles, it has given me, I would say, a diversity, if you would, and just a unique opportunity to learn, number one, about business. So, how does business operate? And also just the unique perspective of looking at people, processes, and technology, and how all of that kind of comes together. So, ultimately, I think it gives me a really good vantage point, if you would, to be able to understand that. And then just a little bit about my personal life. I'm married. I have two beautiful little girls that they are just the joy of our lives. Believe it or not, I'm introverted. So thank you for this opportunity. For
Yeah.
your viewers that may be introverted, just cheer me on.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
introverted too, Nicole.
are you
I
really?
am. Yeah.
It's a gift, right? I think it's definitely a gift. So yeah, I consider myself to be a high achiever. And I also have a deep respect for others, and I thrive in an atmosphere of continual learning and growth.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. I believe that. Yes, I know that about you. I think that's awesome. So, what does the term leadership mean to you?
In thinking about leadership for me, I think it's several aspects. Number one, I would say what it's not. Leadership is not management,
Yeah.
right? You often think about, hey, you're a leader, you manage people, but it's really effective leadership is more about being able to influence others to
Yeah.
essentially reach their highest potential, as well as being motivated to reach yours, because essentially it's about being able to inspire. When I think about just the details of what that looks like, it's being decisive, having a strategic vision, because if you're leading someone, they need to know where they're going, right?
Right.
In addition to that, I think it's about having self-awareness as well, as you are self-aware in how you show up,
Mhm.
where you have opportunities to improve, and kind
Right.
of a continual learning journey, if you would, being authentic, having integrity. And I think those are some of the things that inspire trust and commitment from others, essentially. For you to be able to help them to align to your vision. And based on that, you're able to empower them to essentially reach a shared goal, right? So, this is a shared goal that we're trying to attain in order to essentially produce and a sustainable future, right? So we're trying to get somewhere. We don't want to be here today and gone tomorrow. So it
Right.
takes futuristic type thinking. So when I think of leadership, it kind of encompasses all of those things. But if you sum it up, in my opinion, it's how am I continuing to develop and be better? And how do I inspire others to do
Yeah.
the same while impacting my stakeholders, being my customers, my
Yeah.
the employees, etc., to be them best, that their best selves, and also to provide them with a product that is going to be beneficial to them.
Yeah. And I love that you said the decisiveness was a huge part of
Yeah.
influencing others because I
Mhm.
believe
Mhm.
it's one of the things we don't talk about enough.
Exactly.
And I believe that being indecisive and
Mhm.
an ineffective decision maker or waffling and going back and forth
Mhm.
is something
Mhm.
that actually erodes trust
Mhm. It does.
and
100%.
with us as a leader. And I think it's something that we don't talk about or teach
Mhm.
enough. And it's
Mhm. Mhm.
an important value and skill set to have.
I love one of the quotes by Brene Brown. She says, clear is kind,
Mhm.
unclear is unkind, right? And so I think, being clear, if I'm, whether that's delivering hard information, whether that's saying, hey, this is a wonderful thing and this is where we're going, at least right? Because you cannot perform at your best self or at your highest level if you don't know, where you have
Right?
opportunities or what we're trying to accomplish, or if that is unclear. So I agree with that 100%, that that's very important to be decisive.
Yeah. And
It's the wrong
I've
decision. It's a
right. Well, and I've
decision.
seen it hold people back from going to the next level,
Absolutely.
from making it
Mhm.
from a supervisor to a director or a director to a VP. So I've even
Mhm.
seen it
Mhm.
hold people back from their lack of decisiveness and
Yes. Yes.
um, their executive presence in all of
Mhm.
that. So it's a really important skill set that I don't believe we talk about
Yes, I agree.
enough.
I agree.
And perfectionism really impacts
It
oftentimes our
does.
ability to be decisive, right? It's like we hold off on moving forward because we need all the perfect data
Mhm.
before
Mhm.
moving forward. Or we think, that a decision has to be perfect. And so we go back and forth on it when really, let's be real, we're only going to be 60% on any
Right.
decision. And there's never a good or bad decision. There's just a decision and
A
then the
decision.
consequences of that decision.
Absolutely. I
Um,
completely agree with that. Completely agree with that.
what would you say are your core values as a leader?
So for me, I am a believer in Christ.
Yep.
So with that being said, I lead through my faith. My faith is essentially the filter through which I lead. So it's based on biblical principles such as servant leadership, accountability, making ethical and just decisions,
Yeah.
being compassionate to others, right? So, typically when faith is brought into the conversation, it's like, oh goodness, here's this
Yeah.
religious person. But it really is, if you think about it from the perspective of, it's all about trying to be a better person and
Yeah.
show up differently in the world. So for me, those are some of that's the core value, or the filter, if you would, that
Yeah.
I utilize in order to lead and make decisions and choices throughout initiatives. A really good example of that for me is that I mentioned acquisitions
Yeah.
as an example. I have led five of my organization's last acquisitions, and they
Awesome.
are fast-paced. They involve a lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of decisions that you have to be made pretty quickly, in a
Yeah.
timely manner. But with that being said, I don't necessarily have this large team supporting me to do that. All of that is done through essentially influence, right? So this is not a hierarchical where you have
Yeah.
three companies reporting to me. No, but I do have these work streams and these leaders that are reporting from a matrix standpoint, not hierarchical. And so, with that being said, I have to be able to inspire others to get the work done, to set the appropriate guidelines, to put a framework in place in order to help them to meet their goals, essentially, or the shared goal that we have with regards to integrating this particular acquisition. And so, with that being said, I'm not able to lead. I couldn't get anything done if people didn't trust me. I couldn't
Right.
get anything done if I'm not treating people right. I couldn't, we couldn't be successful in what we do if I'm not able to make compassionate decisions when it comes to the people side of things, right? So all of that to me really layers into how I approach work and how I approach ensuring that people are treated fairly.
Yeah, and again, it's that influence piece because I think oftentimes we think about leadership in a
Mm-hmm.
hierarchy, right? Like I'm reporting
Yeah.
to someone, people are reporting to me, and I think
Mhm.
again, some of the most important leadership we do is that horizontal, the kind
It
of
is.
linear,
Mm-hmm.
and even
Mm-hmm.
the peer to peer. Because what I have found is I've been working with organizations, and one of the things that I think is like a trend for 2025 or something that needs to be focused on is
Mm-hmm.
peer to peer relationships.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's a really they're mission critical
Mm-hmm.
moving
Mm-hmm.
things forward, right? It was mission critical for these acquisitions, even though peers may have been another organization and the acquired organization.
Mm-hmm.
But again, those relationships are so critical. And I think oftentimes as companies, we sleep on them or we don't
Mhm.
incentivize peer-to-peer meetings. And it really, they're mission
Mhm.
critical in my perspective.
They are, and helping to drive forward the mission and helping to ensure that you have a full perspective. I like
Right.
to use this analogy of an elephant, and I'm sure you've heard this one, where you have different people that are blindfolded. They're standing around an
Yeah.
elephant. One is touching the leg, and they're like, "Oh, it's a tree trunk," and
Yeah.
someone else may be touching the ear and saying, "Oh, it's
Yeah.
a fan," or "Oh, it's a water hose," if they're touching the trunk. And with that being said, we all have different perspectives, and it's only when we all come together with and bring our individual perspectives or our authentic selves, our vantage points, if you would, of the organization, that we're able to truly get a glimpse of what the whole looks like. And based on that, going back to your comment about the 60%, based on that, then you're able to make a more informed decision, right?
Right.
So I agree that peer-to-peer relationship is so key with being able to be successful in your initiatives. And it's definitely something we need to focus on. It's not about competition, it's about us all being able to succeed towards that shared common goal.
Yeah. And imagine too, if, when you're meeting with your peer, you're able to find out, oh, one of my team members and one of your team members is
Yes.
experiencing conflict. I
Mm-hmm,
didn't know
mm-hmm,
that, and it's preventing us from moving forward effectively and timely. Like,
mm-hmm.
okay, we
Yeah.
need to talk about that. If we're not meeting, then we don't know, we can't mitigate, we can't resolve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so turning towards back to you, how do you manage stress and also maintain your well-being in your leadership role, right? You got a lot going on.
Yeah, and this is one, and I would say that I really during COVID was
Yeah.
a time where I think we all had this kind of aha epiphany. Just the time to be introspective, the time to reassess your life, where you are, where you want to be, how you show up, right? And so for me, I got this aha revelation, if you
Yeah.
would, and it was that very simple but profound, that peace is my umpire. Peace is
Yes.
my umpire.
I remember you telling me
So,
that.
yes. So when you think about an umpire, the umpire is calling balls and strikes, hey, this is out, this is
Mm.
in, whatever the case may be, right? Well, for me, I understand, I try to live in a place where I'm centered. I know, how I'm feeling, right? I'm real self-aware. I'll put it
Yeah.
that way. And so when any situation arises, where I'm starting to feel maybe I'm working too much and I'm starting to feel stressed, or I'm starting to feel, get snippy with people or short, or, whatever the case may be, however I'm showing up that is out of my normal character, I know that I have at that point lost that place of peace. And
Right.
so I am immediately trying to get back to that. When you go back to, even as an example, dealing with people, right? So someone else may approach you and they may be having a bad day, right? Well, I can't let their bad day pull me
Right.
into then having a bad day. And so I have to be able to understand and have compassion for where they may be, empathy, for what may be going on in their lives, and not allow it to disturb my peace. So I will say I go throughout the day, even determining, okay, I think I need a vacation. And I actually
Yeah.
just got back off of vacation. And I would say I came in meetings today and I'm like, oh, yeah, I have a great idea. I have a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
It was I'm like, hey, you know what? I should have taken a vacation earlier, right? But but with that being said, I think having peace as your umpire, you're really able to understand, how am I showing up? And is this the best representation of who I am? And if not,
Right.
what needs to change, right? And
Yeah.
being able to quickly make that. So I would say peace is my umpire.
Yeah. I love that.
Hmm, hmm.
So what other, like we think about future leaders and the future of
Hmm.
the workplace and the workforce, what do you think are some of the key skills leaders need to thrive, like in this
Yeah,
future workforce?
key skills. That's a really good question. And Because of the projects that I have led, the large initiatives that I've had the opportunity to lead, I would say that if I look back on my career, it has been the growth that I have seen, the promotions, et cetera, have been because I haven't been afraid to take the challenging assignments, right? And there's a actual leader here, his name is Kenneth Bird, and he said, I wasn't afraid to slay the dragons, right?
Right.
And so what that essentially looks like is being able to tackle the big, scary projects and understanding that often growth comes through failure.
Right.
So on these initiatives, I'll go back to the acquisitions as an example. With each acquisition, there's an opportunity to learn and grow because there's never the chance to know everything about
Right.
the our organization. There's not the opportunity or the time to do all the work. So the question becomes, how do I, as a leader or as an aspiring leader, not be afraid of that, not be afraid of the unknown, if I could simplify it, right?
Yeah.
So there's an unknown here, and I'm okay with that unknown. I'm okay with not having all the answers. And so
Right.
I think that's a big part of it, is being willing to accept the challenges and that come with the role, and essentially not being afraid to raise your hand and say, yes, I'll do that, right? You don't have to have, and I think as women, we typically, feel like we have to have it all together. We have to, check every single box. And that's just not true, right? I think that we have to simply show up authentically and trust, that who we are is going to be what is needed for that time and that place of what we're doing. So I think that's a part of it when you think about just aspiring leaders, take the lead, take the assignment, and that gets you the exposure that you need, and trust that in who you are, you're going to be able to deliver.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I also think one of the things I think a really big trend is agility over ability.
Yes, I love it.
So Adam Grant said, it's no longer about ability in the workforce. Ability is your experience, your skills,
I
your
love it. Yes.
potential.
Hmm.
Agility is your ability to be wrong, admit
Yes.
that you made a mistake,
Yes.
change your mind, self-reflect. And
Hmm.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that if we can, start training people to be more agile,
Yeah.
self-reflect, say, you know what, let's think outside of our perspective.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
what else could be true here?
Yes. Yes.
I think is going to be really, really important. It's actually something I've been focusing on my own personal and
Hmm.
professional growth journey this year.
That's
Is just
wonderful. I love
being more
that.
agile because, again, in the work that I do, you can't have a perfectionist mindset and an agile mindset,
That's true.
right? Because
Absolutely.
perfectionism says it's this way, it's black
Hmm.
and white, right? It's
Hmm.
this way. There's, you know what I'm saying? Or if you make a mistake, you're bad.
Hmm.
Like you
Hmm.
need to have shame over it. And
Yes.
there's no room for growth when we feel shame. And so
Hmm.
for me, I've been really working on that agile mindset and being open to, even with my women's leadership conference, I'm like, this is the
Hmm.
first time I'm doing it. Like, here we go. Let's live and learn.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you'll find that people are, they're cheering for you because they want you to succeed, right? I'm personally really excited about the conference, but
Yes.
I agree. And oftentimes we've painted this picture in our minds that, hey, we're going to fail, or it's going to be this, or it's going to be, this horrible thing. And it turns out to be wonderful because everyone's there to help. That we all have that common goal, and it is typically not what we think it would be, right?
Yeah.
And we're painting the pictures and scenarios in our mind.
Yeah. And also we don't know if we don't try. That whole idea of right?
Oh, I
Like
love it.
failure
Yes.
is part of success. It's part of the
Yes.
journey, right? I know as a
Yes.
spiritual person as well, like God put this conference on my heart
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I don't know for what purpose.
Yes.
I don't know if it's to learn a lesson,
Hmm. Hmm.
or to grow this event or for,
Yes.
what I'm saying? I don't know. Or to
Yes.
provide a venue for women to connect and have a network of support for themselves. Like I don't really know the purpose other than it was
Hmm.
really loud. I tried to ignore it. I was like, I said I would never do event, God. Like, what is
Mhm,
happening here? He's like, no,
mhm,
you need to have
mhm.
it. You need to have it. So yeah, you try
Right.
things and you have to let go of the outcome.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. I love it.
So I focus on a lot of like addressing perfectionism in the workplace.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, even just reflecting on your career. Do you have any examples or just as you think, because you and I have talked a lot just off camera, obviously,
Yeah.
about perfectionism, and can you like what are some of the ways that you think perfectionism has gotten in your way?
Oh goodness, this is a great question. Um, as a recovering, continuously
Perfectionist.
recovering perfectionist,
Yeah.
right? I think for me, it was presentations. That may
Okay.
sound so simple.
No, it's not. It's I get it.
Oh, goodness, because a lot of the presentations that I do at this point in my career are C-suite. You know,
Yeah.
to your our executive leaders, the CEOs of other organizations, right? And so, as a perfectionist, I started out feeling like I had to have all the details in my slides, right?
Right.
That my presentation was like, I had an hour's worth of material for a
Right.
20-minute meeting, and I felt like I had to have everything together. I had to have knowledge of every single detail in order to feel like I was seen as smart and
Mhm.
also to feel like I belonged because I know all the answers and I have all this information, right? That got in my way. It prevented me from being able to show up as my authentic self.
Right.
Because I was so focused on the material, I wasn't focused on the audience, right? And what they needed to get from the material.
Right.
And so I learned to go through the process, if you would. I will develop the slide decks. I'll still develop them, but I don't show them all, right? I may that's a tool that I utilize because that helps me to number one align my thinking, make sure that I'm thinking from the various perspectives of the stakeholders in the room, but and it gives me a level of comfort, if you would, that I can go back and refer to
Right.
that. But at the end of the day, I have to trust that I know this material. So whether I have a slide deck or not, I'm not leaning on that. I'm leaning on the fact of this is what I know. And the other thing is being able to trust myself and to trust, I'll say it this way, to think well of others, that others have well, they have good intent, right?
Right.
And if I'm going in with that mindset, it's not, I don't feel like I'm being judged, right? That I'm standing here, I'm presenting before all these people, I'm nervous. And so now I'm being judged. And, I start stumbling over words and things of that nature, right? So for me, that is where perfectionism has
Right.
showed up. It has hindered me. And I think over time, I have really grown from that. So, for example, we had a business transformation update in our corporate all company town hall. So, this
Yeah.
was all employees, and we're providing an update there. And I'm just comfortable. I'm like, gosh, there's some nerves. I think some nerves are healthy, right? But at the end of the day, I knew the material, so there was no need to, really be nervous about that. And I didn't feel like I had to be perfect. I had to be me, right? And a
Right.
part of me is that, hey, I embody this
Yeah.
material. I embody this knowledge. I
Yeah.
am here for a reason, right? And so I belong without having to have someone tell me I belong. I know I belong. And that's the shift, I think, that was the turning point for me, right? And
Right.
being able to do this. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I I think also part of a learning organization is an organization
Hmm.
that allows people to say, I don't know.
Yes,
And think
absolutely.
about it when we're presenting, if we don't think we have to have all the answers and we're allowed to say, that's a really great question. I don't know
Hmm.
the answer to that right now, but I will
Hmm.
find out and get back to you by end of day tomorrow.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like being
Absolutely.
able to normalize, I don't know, it's not a reflection of you. It's a
Yeah.
reflection that we all have a lot going on in our lives. We're being pulled in
Yeah.
all and also we're human. And then
Hmm.
also I think when we can be um when we can when perfectionism is no longer our co-pilot when we're
Hmm.
presenting, we're able to be present, which means
Yeah.
we can listen to people's concerns, right? Instead of thinking
Mhm.
we have the perfect answer, like we can hear people, we can
Ex-
read
Exactly.
body language better.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? We can
Yeah.
just, um, we're just more present.
More present. I agree. And that's where you get the various perspectives in that you mentioned about, hey, it's the shame that says I am bad if I make a mistake, right? Versus, the alternative to that. And I think if we are in those environments, the one thing that I have learned is that, hey, if I get a question, that question is being driven from something. It's not judgment, right? It's not
Yeah,
judgment. They are trying to understand X, Y, or Z. And so that is simply a data point for me, right? That question is just a data point to be able to understand, okay, well, I may not have considered this, or this is
right.
something that we have considered, and here's the rationale as to why it either is a good idea or a bad idea, right? And so with that being said, I completely agree with you, but it still comes from, I think, having that sense of self
Mhm.
that allows you to say, you know what, I'm not perfect and neither are they, right? No
Right.
one is perfect, right? And so with that being said, it allows you to show up from a different perspective. And I think a part of that too becomes having a reputation, your brand or your reputation that you're the type of person that's going to get it done. So, it's not so much that I have to know it, but I know that if she doesn't know it, that she
Right.
is going to be the driver that I need to get the response back.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Mhm,
I love
mhm,
that.
mhm, mhm,
So this interview is coming out in December, which is like the end of this month, obviously. And so
mhm.
I'd love to close with um, knowing maybe what's one of your or two of your like biggest lessons from 2024 or biggest growth opportunities.
Yeah, biggest growth opportunities. So this would be in the business transformation
Yeah.
role. This December would be 1 year that I've been in
Congratulations.
this role. And I would say for me, the biggest growth opportunity has been the ability to work with leaders at varying levels and to understand the various perspectives
Yeah.
of those leaders and how that ultimately makes up the big picture. So it's around strategy.
Yeah.
Um, it's the people side of business, if I
Yeah.
could say it that way. Because at the end of the day, I think organizations or enterprises, they set their targets. We have this sales goal, we have this, whatever the goal or trajectory that they're trying to accomplish. But what really makes that happen, if you would, is the people. The drivers are the people. And you have different leaders that you're able to engage with, and you have to engage with them differently based on who they are,
Right.
how they learn, how they interact, right? And so with that being said, I think, and it requires a level of self-awareness, it requires a level of self-leadership,
Mhm.
and it requires understanding and empathy, right? All of the things that we talked about with regards to leadership itself. It requires you having a vision, right? Because if I'm interacting with you, I'm trying to get somewhere, right? And so,
Right.
regardless of the level of the organization, I think that everyone has a voice, and that voice is important. So I would say for me, that has been the one of the largest opportunities is learning how to interact with others and
Yeah.
learning how to influence others without necessarily having a title for it. Though I do have the title, but without having that or that being a requirement. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
I love that. Yeah.
Right? Because you can, I have, and I've seen this in acquisitions where you have this person has the title, but this person has the authority, right?
Right.
Right.
Yes.
They're the one that's really making the decisions.
Yep.
So I see that time and time again. So I think for me, that's been one of the biggest lessons when you think about when I think about from a professional standpoint. And from a personal standpoint, one of my biggest lessons this year is it's real simple. It's real
Yeah.
simple, but I think it's oftentimes hard to do. and it is to love Necole.
Love it.
Love Necole. And this is one of the things, and I have this actually posted on my computer monitor right now. And it says, the future me is depending on the current me to show up and make the right decisions, right? So when you think about where am I trying to go in life, whether that's professional, whether that's with my family, etc., I have to make the right decisions and show up today in order to have the results
Yeah.
that I'm looking for tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that has been my biggest learning, growth, challenge, if you
Yeah.
will, for this year that I'll take into 2025, and I think I'm going to set it on fire.
I love that. I love that because I think all of our biggest lessons is to love
Yes,
ourselves.
yes, yes.
So, amazing. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. And for all the listeners, if you haven't already registered, come to Present and Powerful in Birmingham, Alabama on January 14th, where Necole gets to be a panelist. I'm so honored and excited. It's gonna be a really great afternoon together. But
Absolutely.
thank you, Necole. You're incredible. And I just really appreciate all the wisdom you shared with us today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
Mhm.